Well, they contacted us, but I didn't feel ready. There was something inside, and even the thought of it made me nervous.
Oh, sweet, gentle breeze,
When a young voice first cut through the noise of a crowded television studio in 2018, it didn't sound like the future of pop. It sounded like something out of time. At just 14 years old, Lucy Thomas stood under unforgiving lights, delivering a performance that stunned audiences not because it was loud or flashy, but because it was controlled, mature, and quietly powerful. Industry observers immediately took notice, and just as quickly, doubts followed. In an era obsessed with speed, virality, and instant stardom, this kind of voice raised a troubling question. Could it survive the modern music machine? Behind the applause, executives whispered familiar warnings. Child prodigies rarely endure. Talent matures slower than public expectations. The spotlight once turned on is rarely forgiving. Many assumed her trajectory would follow a familiar arc: early praise, overwhelming pressure, then a gradual fade. But Thomas was never racing toward the spotlight. She was standing still, choosing patience in an industry that punishes it. And that decision would quietly shape everything that followed, even as something unseen was already unfolding behind the scenes. Most young performers who break through televised competitions are pushed forward immediately. Singles are rushed, images are redesigned, schedules tighten. But Thomas's path veered sharply away from expectation. Instead of capitalizing on fleeting attention, her team made an unusual call: slow everything down. There would be no instant pop pivot, no forced reinvention, no race to dominate charts that reward novelty over endurance. This restraint puzzled commentators. Silence in the modern industry is often interpreted as failure. Yet during these quieter years, Thomas was doing the opposite of disappearing. She was refining. Vocal training intensified. Her repertoire deepened. Classical crossover pieces replaced trend-driven material, allowing her register to evolve naturally rather than under strain. The approach came with risk. Audiences are impatient. Algorithms forget quickly. But the strategy prioritized longevity over headlines, even as misconceptions quietly grew. Behind the measured pace was a rare degree of structural protection. Thomas's management resisted the common industry cycle of overexposure and emotional exhaustion. Schedules remained selective. Public appearances were purposeful. Most importantly, there was no pressure to abandon her musical foundation for mass appeal. This was not hesitation. It was architecture. By focusing on classical and cinematic material, Thomas entered a demographic known for loyalty rather than hype. This audience values consistency, emotional clarity, and technical mastery. It grows slowly, but it stays. Over time, this choice insulated her from the volatility that often dismantles young careers. While peers battled burnout and reinvention, she built trust. Still, staying controlled meant staying misunderstood, and without constant visibility, narratives began forming unchecked. As Thomas's presence remained carefully curated, the internet began constructing its own version of events. Viral family performances, particularly collaborations with her sister, created a sense of intimacy that fans embraced instantly. Viewers didn't just follow the music, they followed the household. Growth felt shared. Success felt collective. But intimacy online is fragile. The same familiarity that builds loyalty can also invite speculation. Commentators began searching for conflict where none existed. Rumors of rivalry surfaced, fueled not by evidence but by narrative hunger. None were substantiated, yet repetition gave them weight. Thomas never addressed it. No rebuttals, no clarifications. Silence again. And as she remained quiet, the story being told about her began drifting further from reality. At the height of speculation, a deeply troubling wave of misinformation surfaced online. False reports circulated, suggesting tragedy where there was none. These claims were later revealed to be cases of mistaken identity, but by the time clarity emerged, the damage had already spread. Many public figures would have responded immediately. Statements would have been issued. Corrections demanded. Thomas chose a different path. She did not amplify the noise. Instead, her actions spoke quietly. She continued rehearsing, continued recording, continued preparing for live performances. While online chaos escalated, real-world momentum continued. Fans who watched closely noticed the contrast. Venues were filling. Projects were advancing. The person at the center of speculation was very much present, even as fiction briefly outpaced fact. Fame that grows slowly carries a different kind of weight. Without dramatic rises and falls, pressure accumulates quietly. Expectations rise without release. For years, Thomas had been described as potential. Potential implies waiting, proving, becoming something not yet allowed to exist. Behind composed appearances was an artist navigating scrutiny without spectacle. Online criticism intensified as her maturity became undeniable. Some questioned relevance. Others questioned timing. Yet her focus remained internal. Craft over commentary. Performance over reaction. This restraint was not emotional distance. It was emotional management. Avoiding public conflict meant carrying private tension, tension that was being directed toward a moment that would finally redefine her position. By 2026, the groundwork was complete. What followed felt sudden only to those who had not been paying attention. Thomas stepped into original material and demanding stage work that required more than vocal precision. It required presence, narrative control, emotional depth. She delivered all three. Critical response shifted almost overnight. Reviews no longer referenced her age or beginnings. They spoke instead of authority and confidence shaped by time. Audiences responded immediately. Performances sold out. Demand expanded beyond digital platforms into major venues across Europe. The transformation extended beyond sound. Her visual identity evolved naturally, elegant, restrained, professional. Nothing felt forced. It felt inevitable. With recognition came reassessment. Early assumptions were quietly abandoned. The slow pace once questioned now appeared deliberate. The silence once criticized now looked strategic. What had been interpreted as absence was, in hindsight, preparation. Her refusal to engage in manufactured controversy became part of her credibility. In an industry driven by constant exposure, restraint stood out. Her career was no longer a mystery. It was a model. One built on patience, protection, and precision. Yet even success reshaped relationships. Some fans longed for earlier intimacy. Others embraced the refined distance. Growth always divides perception, but the music remained steady and unmistakably hers. Despite increased visibility, Thomas maintained strict boundaries. No public feuds, no personal disclosures, no participation in industry gossip. Privacy in the public eye is often mistaken for secrecy. Still, she held firm. Letting the work speak prevented distraction. Tour continued. Projects expanded. Doubt faded. The noise that once surrounded her dissolved, not through confrontation, but through consistency. In an environment that rewards reaction, her stillness became a statement. It suggested control without compromise, stability without stagnation. Today, Lucy Thomas stands as a case study in defying industry gravity. Her journey challenges the belief that success must be immediate to be real. Instead, it reveals how careful packing can outlast noise, how silence can protect growth, and how patience can reshape expectation. She is no longer defined by where she began, but by what she has built. A voice refined by time. A career shielded from collapse. An audience earned, not chased. What began as an anomaly has become a blueprint. Not for fame, but for longevity. This was never a delay. It was a design.